No, if I'd gone to work yesterday, I would have been the worst. I literally I went out to like get coffee and like start editing the podcast, and then I didn't feel comfortable being at the coffee shop with an empty cup of coffee for much longer than I did. So I was like, oh, I'll just wander around the neighborhood a little bit. And like that wasn't like exactly physically exhausting, but I went home and I was just like, I need to lay down. And then I did that for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I would have been fucking useless to society as a whole today.
Welcome to Noise Floor, a podcast about music and our favorite artists' discographies. I'm Troy Sennett.
And I'm Matt Kistler.
And today we are continuing our series on Bright Eyes, talking about their second album, Letting Off the Happiness. This came out on November 2nd, 1998 on Saddle Creek Records, like much of the early Bright Eyes catalog. It was produced and mixed and mastered by Mike Mogis. And I think was he involved in the collection, or that was AJ Mogis who was involved in mixed the collection? Is that right?
Yeah, because we had looked, and I think Mike just did like some layout stuff.
Right. Okay. But so this is his first album as a very involved member of the Bright Eyes world. And I think you can hear his fingerprints all over this thing. He's credited with a ton of different stuff on it, from like the pedal steel to the keyboards to plays some drums and piano, and obviously like produces and mixes the whole thing. But Matt, had you heard Letting Off the Happiness before this? Is this one that was kind of important to you? I can't remember from our like run through our Bright Eyes history last week.
No, this is one that I know I have listened to it in the past, but it apparently either didn't make very much of an impression at the time, or life just makes some things slip away like that. It was not a staple in my listening when I was like in my initial wave of Bright Eyes fandom, though. So this is a fairly fresh set of listens for me.
Yeah, it's the same for me. Like, I don't think I had ever heard this album in full before. I'm pretty sure I had heard a couple of the songs, but this was the big early like complete blind spot for me.
Yeah, and I feel like that's odd for me, because I feel like, I know now me would immediately be like, oh, I should go find this person's earliest album. And like this, in a lot of ways, like I know a collection of songs is technically an album. That's why we talked about it. But like this, just to like kind of hint a little bit at what we're going to discuss today, this really feels way more like a proper album than a collection of songs did.
It does, but I still found that there's not a ton like written about this album. I couldn't find many contemporary reviews. I'm sure there were some, but like I had expected the collection of songs to be kind of, relegated to a curiosity. But I think even this one, I get the impression that fans still think of it as like there's some really great stuff on it, and you can hear the maturity like coming along. But that like it seems to me like people think the Bright Eyes like thing really starts with Fevers and Mirrors.
In a lot of ways that's understandable, but like this still does feel kind of leaps and bounds ahead of most of what we've talked about so far.
Oh, absolutely. It's far more mature and like assured in the writing, the performance, and like, he's got the melodies. His Conor's voice on this is the draw. Like the way that he's always sounds like he's exorcising some kind of demon, or, screaming because there's no other way to express the emotion that he's writing about. Like that's what this album is, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like he really comes into his own here, as opposed to like, not even necessarily like it felt like with the collection of songs that he was like figuring out what he wanted to do, and here it feels like he's found what he wanted to do and has really like iterated on it to a point where like it is able to be expressed the way that he really wants it to be expressed.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it feels more sort of focused genre wise too, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
we talked a lot about how collection is very haphazard, and it's like here's like a anime instrumental song with a bunch of synths, and here's like a almost sort of like punk sounding thing or a new wave sounding thing, or the acoustic folk stuff. And this one, it feels like they're both him, and I assume this is a lot of Mike Mogis' contribution as well, able to kind of amalgamate all these influences into something singular, but that still you can hear the variety of stuff that they were listening to or riffing on at the time.
Yeah, definitely. It pulls all that influence and makes it into coherent songs rather than saying, I want to do this kind of thing, let's make a song like that. And instead we end up with 10 songs that have little bits of kind of everything we've heard so far, also done a lot better.
Yeah, and I imagine that also has to do with the fact that this was, not, I assume, not written over the course of 2 to 3 years. This is all basically, late 1997, early 1990, or through 1998 that they're working on this album.
Yeah. I mean, we even have a timestamp on one of these songs as to when it was being recorded.
That is true. And yeah, I mean, and so this, I think they mostly did this at Conor's home studio, which I assume they've just kind of tricked out with better gear at this point.
It sure sounds like it.
And I'm not sure which was which, but then they did some recording in Athens, Georgia as well. I know Andy LeMaster, who is like an Athens guy, contributes a number of things to this album, and it looks like maybe they did like, or at least maybe he worked on 4 of the songs. Whether they actually went down there or he just did stuff remotely, I don't know. Like I said, I could find no interviews, retrospectives, oral histories, like anything about this album. Did you find like much kind of background on it?
Not really, no. And even the Conor's Basement podcast, who also at one point trekked through at least a chunk of the discography, didn't really seem to have a lot of background on this one.
Okay, I didn't listen to that podcast. I wanted to like go in without it clouding my judgment of the album too much. Was it good?
It was pretty good. I threw it on in the background. It was a lot of kind of, talking about kind of a unified theory of like what the album is about, like the story it's trying to tell, which like I don't know that I necessarily agree that the album as a whole is necessarily trying to tell a story in like the like almost concept album type sense. But I see the angle they're going for. Also the conceit of the podcast, like there's like a running gag that they are literally in the Oberst basement. They are not. But I do love a good bit.
That's
so
good.
But yeah, I just kind of threw it on in the background because I was like, I want to kind of know what these guys have to say, but I also, again, don't want to have my entire opinion shaded by that. So
yeah, that's the idea of this as a concept album is kind of interesting, I think, because it feels like it is very theme focused more than story focused. And I mean, in the sense I guess you can call many albums like a concept album, but I don't think that there's like, I don't think that there is a sort of overarching story or like even a lot of progression through the album. You can make an argument for it, but it's certainly not structured like a in acts or in an arc or anything.
Yeah, I remember reading kind of in some of the notes on these songs that Conor did an interview, I think around the time that like the companion pieces were coming out, where he like semi laments, semi jokingly like says that he is maybe just writing a bunch of songs about the exact same thing, which I don't think is necessarily true at all, but I do feel like there is a strong thematic unifying element throughout this record, and throughout a lot of the material that we're going to talk about after the record on this episode. Do you feel like you get that sense too, that there's like a that you could maybe sum up this album in a couple of sentences, like not pejoratively, obviously, but
absolutely. I mean, that's sort of the magic of it, in that it is, the songs are like varied enough, but it is this album is basically entirely, I think, about just like the isolation that comes with depression and trying to fight that off with substance abuse. Like I don't, and then that's becoming obviously like a cycle of addiction. Like I think that is how much of that is his personal experience, how much of that is people that he knows or is writing about or whatever. I'm not sure. You can speculate about some of that stuff, but I mean, I think thematically, like that is pretty much what the album is about.
Yeah, definitely. I would argue that maybe a couple of the songs extend into different ways of kind of fighting off the depression that aren't substance based, but beyond that, like, yeah, pretty much that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we can get into the songs, and we'll kind of break down each one as we go. The album starts with this song called "If Winter Ends," which is like many Bright Eyes albums. It opens with some noise, and it has kind of a noise bed that goes through a lot of the song, but it's an acoustic verse, and then it gets to the song pretty quickly. What did you think of this as an intro?
I think it's a pretty cool intro, and I do. It feels that kind of bed of noise and like field recordings that starts off the song does feel like we are kind of gently lifting ourselves out of the material that led up to this record and into the record proper. I don't know that was the intent here, but it kind of feels like we're transitioning ourselves into the next phase of Bright Eyes, as it were.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I even wrote in my notes, like, this is where the Bright Eyes sound begins. I think, like, obviously everything before this is like, it was Conor, it's recognizably him, but this is the song where I am, and then this album as a whole is like, I see why I see this almost more as like the starting point of Bright Eyes proper than even the first couple things that were released under the Bright Eyes name.
Yeah, because we kind of talked last episode about kind of, where is obviously the line between where the early Conor Oberst solo material ends and Bright Eyes begins is when the name change happens on that Squad Car 96 split. But like, does it necessarily feel like that? Debatable in a lot of ways. But yeah, this feels like Bright Eyes as we know them today in a lot more ways than the collection of songs did, at least on a consistent basis. Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's you get it in the lyrics too, like even just in this first verse, like into these twisted months I plunge without a light to follow. It's just that's a Conorism right there.
yes, for sure.
I love the way that this song like swells up at the end and gets quite huge with this kind of desperate like lie to me and say it's going to be all right is like, to me that kind of sums up I think that this album is sort of suffused with this like wanting things to be all right, wanting to be able to change and not like figuring out how you're going to be able to do that and kind of living with the inevitability that maybe things aren't going to be all right.
Yeah, this feels in a lot of ways, and not to get too ahead of ourselves here, but like the whole album does feel like it is. This album in a lot of ways feels like it is raging against the dying of the light. If the light in this case is your ability to be happy, because like there are a lot of like maybe like nihilistic tendencies on this album, but they feel somehow through kind of a combination of the lyrics and how they're delivered as if we're in a space where we are saying these things but we don't quite believe them, which I think is a really that's a hard bridge to gap, especially when like Conor is again still like a teenager when he is writing and recording these songs. So like it feels like it would be very easy for it to come off as very solidly like, no, I truly like believe that like nothing matters and everything sucks. But like it does not feel like that. It feels like there's still something in there that like wants to believe that, you know, something better is possible, even though all evidence points to the contrary.
Yeah, and again, going back to how he's able to just sell basically any emotion so well with his voice because he just, you know, leans into it and overwhelms the mic, you know, the the things are clipping and breaking up still there, but like Mogis is able to kind of tastefully mix that stuff in and make it, it makes everything just come through really clearly.
Yeah, the way that he delivers the line, "How can I expect anyone else to give a shit?" is like particularly exemplary of that, I think.
Yep, it's so good. Next up is Padraig, My Prince, which is a song that to me is like this is the beginning of Bright Eyes as a band. This one just really feels like a full band playing together and not Conor tracking, sort of out of time drums over on the 4-track or whatever. This is a song that sort of uses this image or this story of a baby drowning and the mother's guilt about it is like a metaphor for, I guess, the death of the younger self, I think is kind of the best way to think of it.
Yeah, I was reading the like Genius annotations on this, and I guess when asked about this, Conor like basically was like, "Yeah, no, I've had 5 brothers. They all had the same name, so I just counted them as one, and they all died by drowning." Which is like, come on, man. Of course, it's metaphorical.
Yeah.
Not to make light of children dying, but
I mean,
I'm like, well, that sounds like something Conor would say. In fact.
Yeah, but he has this the line in the song that babies turn blue when they're ignored like the sky on summer days. It's such a like messed up like simile. It's a very striking image.
It really is. Like this is such an odd song in a lot of ways. But that line in particular really sticks out among all of the other stuff going on here.
Yeah, I like the sort of like bubbling sounding synths that kind of run under a lot of the song. I think that's kind of a new idea for them.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I do like how those sit in the mix. I put down that the drums aren't like mixed well in the traditional sense, but like kind of like how they sound on this song a lot.
Yeah.
Like it almost sounds like a one mic, like not very close mic'd situation, but like the playing is good enough that it like sounds fine. And it works with kind of the way the rest of the song is constructed.
Yeah.
I feel like I got to make up for railing against all the drums on the last record a little bit.
Well, they're a lot better on this album.
They
like,
are. They're so much
way.
better. Yeah.
I think probably because Conor doesn't play all of them himself.
Yes, I believe that might be most of it.
He plays some of them, but definitely not all of them. Not on this song. Matt Vogt plays drums on this song.
Yes, there's also a sloppy drums credit on this record, which we'll get to later.
Yeah. I really like this sort of image at the end of people try to like annotate these as a chorus as verses, and a lot of these songs are again kind of like he's just resistant to a chorus lyrically, I think. But the section that ends with I'm still not sure, is there some better place that I could be heading towards, I think is a real highlight of the song, and just that lyric again is another one that sort of sums up this like central idea of the album of being like, I think I could be happy someday, and I want to be, but I really don't know, and it really doesn't feel like it right now.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, to the point of like kind of the delineation between verses and choruses, like I think the only reason that this is labeled as a chorus and like the last few lines are labeled as a chorus is because we have that. So tonight to blank, I will poison myself.
Yeah.
Happens, which like again, we have a very clever lyrical turn of celebrate versus compensate, which in the case of the abuse of various substances, I'm assuming in this case alcohol, you do both when you are in the throes of either addiction or self-medication in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Next up is Contrast and Compare. This is where some of the sort of country influences come in this album, which I think are a really interesting thing that they're pursuing. A lot of pedal steel with a little more of that noise bed stuff. I guess the song, it feels just like a song about the inability to connect to the world around you, and how that kind of feeds in this negative cycle of the isolation and the depression. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, I really like this one a lot. This is an early kind of standout on the record for me. A song so twice they've now done it thrice, as we'll get to. Yeah, I don't know. I like the vocal doubling on this track. I like the vocal melody a lot. I'm blanking a little bit if this is the right one that I'm thinking of. But I feel like the vocal melody on this song, if I'm remembering correctly, reminds me of there's the Thursday song from No Devolution about selling your wedding ring or losing your wedding ring down the drain.
Time Zero? Or no, that's on
That's on Common Existence.
That's on Common Existence.
We've talked about this song before. Y'all can go back and listen to the Thursday series. More people need to do that. But anyway,
Empty Glass is the song.
Empty Glass. Thank you. I think this is the one where the vocal melody reminds me of that one. So naturally I'm drawn to that. But again, like, you know, we've got this like kind of more country leaning song, but then we get to the bridge and we have these like wild electronics happening. Again, like drawing in the things that were disparate on like past collections of music put out by this band. There's some cool like big distorted guitar moments that like I don't want to say don't go anywhere, but like it's like basically just like a 2 chug moment, like leading up to just like a normal vocal for the like energy level of this song. And I think that like that happening a few times, but like not quite overdoing it, really services the song well, keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, there's not like kind of a lot of different parts to it, but again, from like a production standpoint, they're able to pepper in more things that are interesting and kind of make your ears perk up, like you said.
Yeah.
I do love just the way that ends on the I just try to smile and say everything's fine, and then there's like a yeah in the background after that is one of those like it's just an interjection that I love. It feels very like live band in the room just reacting to what's going on.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much.
After that is The City Has Sex, which is I think an absolute jam.
It sure
like
is.
Super lively, fast song. You know, a little bit not quite kind of bluegrass punk or something going on there. I really, really like this one.
Yeah, this one is a ton of fun. It feels like a really upbeat note in an otherwise, like obviously it's not like amazingly happy or anything like that compared to everything else, but like it feels like a nice pickup in kind of the same way that Solid Jackson did in the back half of the last album.
I love the way that he just that image of the boy in the basement with the 4-track machine. He's been strumming and screaming all night down there. They say it's better to bury your sadness in a graveyard or a garden that waits for the spring to wake it from its sleep. It's just another one of those lines on this album that I feel like is getting at this idea that like if you could just wait long enough, if you could bear that weight, then things would get better. I feel like it feels like a running theme.
It does, yeah. It also, I don't know that this is actually the aim, but the specific wording makes me think about the like kind of the ever-present thing in people who have seasonal depression. Do I have seasonal depression or just regular depression?
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that, but it's that ties in so well to the just the title "If Winter Ends" and a lot of the imagery in that song too. Yeah,
but again, for Conor, I have a feeling it's a little closer to not being that.
Right. And you get the end. The truth is all that I am is just a passing event, and there's a few other references in the song to this idea of like insignificance or the. You know, you will eventually be forgotten. The Empire album title. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that kind of points to the thing that I was talking about a little earlier. The like this kind of like feelings of hopelessness, but this desire or need to feel like that's not all that there is.
it's this optimism and pessimism or like fatalism all kind of mixed up together or happening at the same time.
Yeah.
After that is The Difference in Shades, which is another one that's kind of feels like a good fusion of the country influences with the sort of synthesizer-y or like, not quite new wave, but like, a different set of influences that kind of makes up the sound of this album. What do you think of this one?
I like this one a lot. There's some like, I do like that we like kind of get this big contrast from The City Has Sex with this song just being as gentle as it is. I kind of like this whole like the kind of conceit of this song largely being the idea of at least partially being the idea of like kind of going to a place where your the ills that are following you, your depression, etc., like basically like can't find you, like, putting yourself in a place where there's no clocks or phones to wake you up. For some stupid reason, whenever somebody references like there being no clocks someplace, I think about the one part of The Sound and the Fury that I remember, which is the chapter on, don't even remember the character's name, but like his whole thing, that entire like bit of the story is that like he does not want to know what time it is. And I remember us talking at length in the class that I read this for about like how mad that can drive people who have had clocks their entire life.
I've never read that book and I really want to, but I like that as like a connection to this idea that like, that I feel like in this song, a lot of what Conor is pushing back against is this idea that, he has trouble engaging with everyday life, but then that like disengagement on its own can drive you crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, we get to like the kind of the bumping up against technology with the TV's old, the colors fucked, etc. bit.
My read of that middle section, which I love the middle section of the song. It sounds amazing. The way his voice just soars in it is so good. But to me, that whole part of it, the TV's old, that whole section, especially when you get into the next stanza, that will stay like this all golden green, light projects your heart up on a movie screen. It reads to me more like this idea that whether it's a hope or a certainty or a desire that your younger self will still be there no matter how much you have changed or screwed up or whatever, and especially if it's like tied to love in some way. This is what I get out of that.
Yeah, no, that golden green like turn of phrase really does a lot of heavy lifting on that and really like does invoke that feeling.
Yeah, and then you get to the end where it ends on just this kind of extended bit of imagery of a person dying, which is, I mean, I guess it's just kind of, if you think about kind of the natural extension of the sort of the situation of the early part of the song, then you end up, what's the line? The doctors have gone, you sweat through your bed with the pictures and the pills they piled by your head. So it's a very it's not a happy image.
Not a happy image, but then like you get this kind of turn where I don't want to say you're romanticizing death by saying that in a moment everything, but like it's like kind of one of those things that you feel like you have to believe when this big unknowable thing comes around for you.
After that is Touch, which is a very different sounding song for this album.
Yes.
It's the one where there's just no guitar on it at all.
Yeah, I think it's like largely like these really rhythmic keys and like these kind of non-melodic synth moments that are happening at the beginning and the end.
Yeah, these like washy cymbals too. Jeremy Barnes, who I believe is the one who plays in Neutral Milk Hotel, is credited with broken keyboards.
Beautiful,
which is kind of fun. But yeah, it's I think it's despite being like sonically quite different. I feel like Conor's performance ties it to the rest of the album. Again, he's just because it's the way that he's able to sell the emotion and the tone of the song works because of what he's doing.
Yeah, and I mean we still get like some kind of cool new tricks in the vocals too, because we have that there's that like kind of I'm gonna call it the bridge part, where there's like the
Yeah.
dueling vocal moment that I really like a lot.
It's my favorite part of the song.
Yeah, and that doesn't really happen anywhere else on the song. But again, like, you know, having Conor in the mix, kind of doing his thing, really does like it makes it feel like it part and parcel with the rest of the album, even though it very much stands out in that regard.
Yeah, and this is one that like feels a little more I don't want to say optimistic, but like hopeful, at least. This idea that, because it kind of ends with this line that's, you know, there's nothing more I want than just one night that's free of doubt and sadness, one night that I can really feel.
Yeah.
And it's and like you feel in that moment that he believes that it's possible.
Yeah, no, like it is a desire, and it is an uncontested desire, like in the hands of like somebody who is, you know, I guess maybe in a worse place, or maybe a less considered songwriter. I don't know. Like you would have this turn of like, but I know it won't, or something like that. Yeah, that we end on that sentiment is like kind of indicative of the glimmer of hope that is there.
Yeah, I agree. Then after that is June on the West Coast, which I think is the best song on the album by like a pretty wide margin.
It's a really good one.
Yeah. This is like, it's a very intimate song. It's really just vocal and guitar, and it kind of sounds like he's right on top of the mic as he's singing. And it's a song about like a trip of self-discovery, you know, really based on the title and the lyrics up the West Coast, with kind of a verse about each of these cities that he spends some time in. What do you think of this one?
I like this one a lot. We got a lot of words here. We're telling a lot of story about this trip up the coast. And like, yeah, I really love this. Feels like a I one thing I like that I mean, a lot of songwriters do this, but like I feel like Conor like specifically is pretty great at it, is like kind of finding the central framing device and then building a song around that, and like this kind of anchoring yourself in these cities that you have traveled to, and then like kind of hitting different emotional touch points along that like literal trip is really cool, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a road novel. It reminded a lot of Kerouac, you know, by I'm sure is like the literary boy Conor is like present a lot in this one, and that, you know, happens a lot on even on later on this album too.
For sure, yeah. But then you get to like the verse about visiting his brother, and an allusion to like bad shit that has happened in the past. So we're you know, we're not necessarily always anchored in the present, like, you know, like you would figure a song like this would be.
Right.
It's kind of a neat little turn that takes, even though it's incredibly depressing.
Right. The time on the road lets you explore the past as well as, you know, what you might become in the future.
Yeah.
What's the lyric that I really like in this one? The all those months I just wanted to sleep, is this idea of like, you know, there's, again, like you're talking about the seasonal stuff with if winter ends, and then it's this idea that maybe there will be spring and a thaw and healing.
Yeah, my one like big noted line was the one right after that. Though spring it did come slowly, I guess it did its part.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool, especially coming off of the last song.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about with the song that I wondered, I could not find anything to corroborate this. Possibly, okay, I'm not gonna say my favorite. One of my top 5 Bright Eyes songs is another traveling song from I'm Wide Awake It's Morning. And even the rhythm and the melody of this song kind of remind me of that one. And I was wondering if I'm gonna write another traveling song as a reference to this being the first one.
Interesting. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
I'm curious if I read an interview around I'm Wide Awake as we were looking at that album that will confirm that or not. But regardless, I love this song.
Yeah, it's really a great one.
Next up is Pull My Hair, which is another, I think it's actually the second collaboration on this album with Neely Jenkins from Tilly and the Wall. Which is, this song is a pretty cool production, kind of almost like a vintage radio-y sound to it. And the thing that stands out about the song is that unlike pretty much any song on this album, this one is like all repeated parts. And it uses repetition in a way that's just kind of not present anywhere else here.
Yeah, for sure. Like it is almost poppy in that way.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, thematically, it's I think about obviously striving for like a deep romantic or passionate relationship over like the rational, what is, because it's less like, it's more like a song, less like it's math. And it's just like another way of trying to strive for, a real feeling, which I think is sort of the subtext of a lot of this album.
Yeah, and I mean this song that is again titled "Pull My Hair" starts off with "Is the passion all gone, or is it still newlywed?" And like it's like, okay, I feel like I kind of know what I'm in for here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I think lyrically, like, yeah, this song is very fun, dare I say, in a way. Like it's very I don't really know how to put it exactly, but it does. This song feels like a standout in that, like, it is significantly less harrowing than a lot of the other stuff on this record.
It's playful in its way.
Yeah, playful, I think, is the word that I was actually looking for there. But I think that kind of extends to the production too, because like we've got these like kind of cool like big distant guitar swells and like some slide guitar, all this other like kind of little stuff that really builds this song up into something fun and special.
It's kind of the most like maximalist song on the album in that way.
Definitely, yeah.
Hey, times was wondering if it really like fits on the album. But at the very least, it's an interesting kind of probably needed moment of, if not levity, at least like something different before you get into like a pretty dark song after it.
Yeah, I would argue that is probably mostly its purpose here.
Yeah, it works, for the sequencing works. Then we get into a poetic retelling of an unfortunate seduction, which is a real like short story type of song with no real chorus, but one that is the darkest, probably both lyrically and instrumentally on the album, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It's it's pretty. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and I feel like it's using this idea of seduction and of like the end gets into this imagery of like a trapped bird in a cage, but that I think is the whole idea is that it's like tying back to the idea that sadness and depression can trap you, even if it seems like romantic at a certain point.
Yeah, I think so. Like it's we've had songs about seductions before from Bright Eyes, but this really feels markedly different from I guess it really was only one song on the last record, but like definitely feels more mired in this dark this dark metaphor surrounding the real subject.
Yeah. I gotta admit that this is like probably my least favorite song on the album. I had a really hard time kind of getting into this one.
Yeah, it's I have not very many notes on this, and it is not necessarily a huge standout for me in that particular way.
Yeah, I feel like it's aiming for like a certain sort of cinematic style or grandiosity that it maybe just doesn't quite achieve.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. To the point of sequencing, I did find it interesting, and we'll talk about this song a little later. But on the Japanese release, the song "Empty Canyon, Empty Canteen" is also included, and it is between "Pull My Hair" and this song, which I didn't like try to like assemble that together, but I'd be interested to hear kind of how that sequence of songs goes.
Yeah, because the Empty Canyon, Empty Canteen is a much more subdued song than really anything else on here.
Yeah.
But then we get into the album closer, which is Teresa and Tomas, a song about basically escaping and starting fresh with the person the person you love. And do you think this song is like an optimistic one or like just a fantasy? I think it lands somewhere in between.
I think it does kind of land somewhere in between, trending towards a little more optimistic. One of the things that I did pick up from, have you ever read The Unbearable Lightness of Being? Because I have not.
I have. I read it a long time ago now. It was in college. I went back and read through the plot on Wikipedia because I did not remember like anything that happened in this book except like having the sensation that I liked it. And so the two characters that Teresa and Tomas are named after are the characters from The Unbearable Lightness of Being who do like basically move out of the city to the country on their own to get away from all of their other relationships and baggage around them. And then they die in a car crash.
Oh, I didn't know that happened at the end.
Well, that's why the end of this song is so funny to me, because it's like, let's sail away with a whisper and a kiss, or vanish from a road somewhere like Teresa and Tomas. Like they didn't vanish. They were killed.
Yep. I mean, that's vanishing in a way, but yeah.
Right. And I just, I think it's supposed to be a little bit of a, I mean, I guess the one of the things in the book is that like their friends, the people they left behind, don't learn about their death for quite a long time, and so like it is a sort of vanishing. I just got a kick out of that, that detail at the end of the song there.
That's wild. My only real note on the kind of nature of this, or the nature of the aspect of this song where they moved to the country, etc., did kind of remind me of like kind of the beginning conceit of the difference in the shades, the like kind of idea of escaping the modern trappings of things that are bringing you down. I don't know if that like inspired that song at all, but obviously it directly inspired this one.
Yeah, I think that's a good theme to pick up on this album too, is this idea that like, if only things could be a little bit different, or what, like, or if we could change the situation a little bit, then maybe this depression would be less crushing. I think that runs through a lot of this record.
Yeah, and like it is, obviously like any of the things that we're talking about, on this record, like be it like putting yourself in a new a new setting, or putting yourself in a new mindset by way of hallucinogens or alcohol or pills or whatever, or going to a party and having a bad time even. Like it feels like that's kind of like one of the pervading themes of this is like, okay, let's try this and see if it works, and naturally it does not, because it kind of seems to never for Conor or whoever is narrating a given song.
Is the running theme of this series going to be like me, straight edge guy, tries to understand songs about drugs?
Maybe. Yeah, probably. Probably going to be a lot of that.
A little bit of that. Yeah. I don't know if this phrase, like, let's sail away past the birth and death of the day, I gotta imagine Conor lifted that from somewhere, but and then Explosions in the Sky is referencing the same thing, or referencing this song, or just some simultaneous invention going on. But that perked my ears up too, hearing that phrase here.
Yeah, I do like that a lot, and I have no idea where it came from. I imagine somewhere, or it could be this was a Conor Oberst original, and that just extended over to Explosions in the Sky. To that point, I do like the way that this song is constructed, like kind of again as the like kind of John K. Sampson list type song, but in this case, lists of places that we are going to sail away from, be they physical or metaphorical.
Yeah, that becomes I think it becomes a like thing that he does a lot more often. And I think it ties back to the kind of folk song tradition too. I think it's a common structure for those as well.
For sure.
Yeah, and then the song ends with a 15-minute guitar drone, which I will admit readily that I skipped about 12 minutes of.
Yeah, despite my drone credentials, I also did not listen to the entire drone.
But that then leads into a hidden track, which is just an alternate version of Contrast and Compare, which is sort of like half acoustic version, half like kind of fuzzy, ominous synth version, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's funny because like the like acoustic bit of this song also includes harmonium like right at the beginning, and then like does not use it again, which I feel is bonkers because harmonium is a really cool instrument. But yeah, it's a neat alternate version, and I think it's I don't think this is something that I've seen before, having like the secret track be an alternate version of a song. specifically. Like usually a hidden track is just a like kind of one-off that like maybe doesn't necessarily fit the album, but is fun and included anyway. But
the hidden track on So Long Astoria is an alternate version of a song from a different album. Does that count?
I'd say that counts, but a song that appeared not but 7 songs before this does feel a little unprecedented.
Yeah, it works though. Do you have a strong preference of one version over the other?
I don't think so. I think I like the album version slightly more, but like in a lot of ways I don't want to say feel similar because that feels like I'm saying one is unnecessary, but like they have similar energies still, despite being like arranged differently, I guess is where I land.
I like the album version too, just 'cause there's a little more going on there.
Yeah.
And then we kind of touched on the Japanese bonus track, Empty Canyon, Empty Canteen. Which I really like as the production stuff going on is cool, but also I like this one as a writing exercise because I feel like it's using all this imagery from like Western movies, whether it's like vast open spaces or like bodies buried and forgotten in the sand, as this metaphor for the sort of vast, sometimes incomprehensible nature of depression.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought that worked well as a bit of imagery. I don't know that I wouldn't have complained if the song was on the album. Maybe it was just left off as like a sequencing thing. Yeah,
it may have been a like, how do we fit this album on like on sides of vinyl the way we want to type thing too. Because I assume there was like a like proper pressing of this album right out the gate.
I think so. Well, and I think it has that alternate artwork too.
Yeah, it does.
It isn't the fireworks. It's this like kind of big, bright, colorful circles. It really doesn't fit the vibe of the album, in my opinion.
No, not at all.
I actually quite like the sort of paintings of fireworks that is the album cover. I think it's a nice looking cover.
I like this album cover a lot. The original cover, to be clear, not the Saddle Creek vinyl version. I don't hate the vinyl version, but I don't like it nearly as much.
Yeah. But I mean, that's letting off the happiness. I think kind of on the whole, I don't know if I'd say I struggle with this album, but it is clearly not the version of Bright Eyes that really will click with me 2 to 3 albums from now. And I think its legacy is still kind of if not a curiosity, at least a look here if you want to explore where the you want to see how Conor evolved into the songwriter who would become, as opposed to like essential listening. What do you think as far as like kind of the album as a whole and its legacy?
Yeah, I mean it feels like a step in a lot of ways. Like the way that we feel about, I mean, not like the way we feel about the like early solo material to a collection of songs, because I do truly think that like this is leagues better than that. But again, definitely not nearly as good as my favorite Bright Eyes material. So I think I'm in a similar place that you are.
Yeah. And then we get to see a few more of these steps. We're grouping some of the post letting off the happiness work into this episode because there are just so many EPs and splits and loose tracks and stuff like that in this era. So there's a couple things to talk about. There's a split with a band called Books.
Not the Books, just Books.
Just Books. Called Too Much of a Good Thing is a Good Thing. That came out in 1999, shortly after this album. And there's 2 Bright Eyes songs on it, The Vanishing Act and Feeling It for Ian, which are 2 like completely different sounding versions of Bright Eyes. One is this sort of like acoustic song with like a plunky piano, and the other is this really like brash, loud, full band track. What do you think of these 2 songs?
I mostly enjoyed these. The Vanishing Act was really interesting in terms of arrangement. Like that piano that's happening during the like chorus E part is just kind of bonkers. But yeah, I mostly like that one. Feeling It is again definitely a song about hallucinogens. But
A song they didn't even bother to put on their B-sides compilation.
No, I was kind of bummed to notice that, but yeah, that's kind of rough. But it's like a minute and a half long song. Like I kind of understand.
I like the companion version of The Vanishing Act. It's pretty cool too. That has almost this like Caribbean groove.
Yes,
just one of those like I've never heard the band play in that area before. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, definitely.
And then there's I guess Bright Eyes' first like proper EP as well in 1999 was called Every Day and Every Night. This feels like a continuation again of what they were doing on Letting Off the Happiness. This is where I start to really get on board with Bright Eyes, I think. I like a lot, obviously I've liked a lot of stuff that we've talked about on the last episode and this one, but this EP is the first one that I think is like top to bottom really, really solid.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever actually sat down with this one. Like I know I had heard a couple of these songs before, but I think this is definitely my best or my favorite like crop of songs from this era. Like it feels so accomplished, and I know that's easier to do with an EP than it is an album because you literally have to write fewer songs. But like this feels like the ultimate refinement of this era of Bright Eyes for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably just call it maybe a song or two that we really like. I was gonna say A Perfect Sonnet, I think, is my favorite Bright Eyes song so far in this as we go through the catalog. Just the way that it still doesn't even really have like a chorus, but I believe that lovers should be, what does he say? Draped in flowers. It changes each time, but that melody and just the way that he sings it is like, oh yeah, there's something special here.
Yeah. Something I found very interesting about that song that made me like kind of drew me to it, especially in talking about it in this era of Bright Eyes, is like we kind of just went through a whole album like kind of talking about things changing your circumstances to like try and stave off whatever's haunting you, and there's that line in A Perfect Sonnet, killed myself with changes trying to make things better, and I'm like, oh, this feels like a direct response to almost literally everything that he was singing about on Letting Off the Happiness.
Oh yeah, for sure. Then was there another song you wanted to call out on the EP?
I mean, I obviously love that there's symphony on a new arrangement, but I think the closer Neely O'Hara is the other like big standout for me.
Yeah.
I should point out I have not seen or read Valley of the Dolls, so I don't really have that reference point beyond what I learned from Wikipedia. But good song, very different song from pretty much anything else we've heard so far.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the background of the the book or movie is like interesting, but I think it, even without that, it paints such a vivid portrait of like addiction and how it changes you into a person you don't recognize.
Yeah, for sure. We get some good incoherent screaming on this one too. That's good stuff. Also like the end, like I like, just to touch quickly on the production stuff, like there's a lot of like reversed instruments happening here that I think is cool. Like we had talked last episode about one of the songs sounding like kind of proto Digital Ash. This feels pretty proto Digital Ash to me in a complimentary way. But the song just ends with this like wild sound collage that lasts for like a minute and a half, some of which is like clearly just studio conversation.
Yeah, and then like there's some a take folk on songs.
Yeah, there's Lily of the Valley in there too. Like it's really cool. Like it is one of those, like, I feel like an attempt at an experiment like this would not have worked, a couple of years ago in the Bright Eyes oeuvre, but like it feels like it kind of comes together into this like actually genuinely cool thing here.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a really great closing track for the EP.
Yeah.
And then the only other kind of song from this era is the Bright Eyes versus Her Space Holiday split has a remix of Contrast and Compare. I mean, in my usual, typical of me, it's a remix. I'm probably never going to listen to it again.
Yeah. I think this is more interesting than your average remix. There's way more flutes in this than your average remix.
Yeah.
But I don't like the way the vocals sit in this one. Like,
I agree.
It feels like everything about the song got altered except the vocals, and I'm like, you could have just like popped a little more reverb and it would have fit better. But like, whatever. I'm not your space or her Space Holiday. I don't know anything about actual production on remixes. It's just, I don't know. There's some cool stuff happening here, but yeah, I'm probably never going to listen to this again.
Yeah. All right. And then just like last time, there's a companion EP that came out in 2022, featuring some re-recorded versions of a few songs from this era. The one that I think is awesome is the companion version of City Has Sex, which is features Katie Crutchfield from Waxahachie. And she is just like sings lead on the first half of the song, and they've turned it into a little more of like a fast country song. And I love it even more than I love the album version.
Yeah, like they really lean into the folk punk bit. Having Katie Crutchfield is always going to be an asset no matter what you're doing. So like obviously it rocks hard. Yeah, I really think that song, without like dramatically changing its feel, got a very huge glow up from the companion treatment.
Yeah, and they do a similar thing with M. Ward on Kathy with the K song. Although that song is from an EP that we're covering next week,
which literally comes out after the next album that we're talking about. So I'm a little unsure why it's here.
Yeah, I read that some of the companions, like the songs being grouped as they are on certain companion EPs, is actually indicative of when a song was written, or like the first attempt at recording a song or something like that.
Okay.
There's a couple of other things that'll come up, like as we get to later on, like, so I think the Cassadaga one in particular has songs on it that fans didn't realize were from the Cassadaga era or were re-recorded in the Cassadaga era or something like that.
Gotcha. So we're in an armed situation where songs are brewing for a really long time.
I think so.
Cool. Love it.
Yeah, and we've got an Elliott Smith cover featuring Phoebe Bridgers, which is pretty cool.
Of course it is. It's a real rockin' song too.
Yeah. The other one that I think is worth kind of calling out is, again, just because it's the other song that I really love from the record, is Jude on the West Coast, which they almost turned into this like little bluegrass or like kind of full on country tune. Someone even says, "Whoa, getting bluesy" in the middle of the song.
That. I loved that so much because I literally had that thought and then it got said out loud as I was listening to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think these companion EPs are such a nice sort of middle ground between the re-record everything mentality that some bands have now, and or trying to do like a album tours. I don't think Bright Eyes has ever done album shows, and I feel like they never would. It doesn't feel like their style.
No.
But I'm just every one of these companion EPs I think are really worth seeking out, even as like a casual fan of the band.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think it does seem it. I feel like doing full album re-recordings like kind of has this weird like expectation of it sounding like the original thing, but just recorded better. And like obviously with the changes that happen with people's voices as they age, but yeah, I think the whole like kind of going back and plucking songs that you like and would like to work on a little bit more, and make them interesting to 2022 Conor Oberst and crew, is a cool way to go about it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I think that's all the Bright Eyes. Do you have a random recommendation for this week?
I do. We're rapidly approaching October now. In fact, it will be October when this episode drops, which means it's AFI season, whether they like it or not. I'm going to recommend one thing, and then it's going to have some sidecar recommendations. But I specifically want to recommend AFI's 2003 album, Sing the Sorrow. I don't have a lot to say about it. It's their best album. they're a good band. I'm seeing them in October. It's going to be great. I traveled all the way to LA to see them perform that album. That's how much I like it. Yeah, a weird instance of major label debut is in fact their best album. Yeah, it's just kind of got a mix of everything I like about that band. But the like kind of sidecar recommendations here are: one, Hardlore is doing a 2-episode interview series with Davey Havok. The first one came out a little while ago. I think the second one will be out by the time you hear this. Davey Havok's a really interesting dude, and also a very funny dude. So definitely a worthwhile listen. And also fellow Chicago music podcast Album Rubbers just sat down with members of Death Pose, Alex, and I'm blanking on the other member who is on that episode. Sorry, other person in Death Pose that is on that episode. But they talk about Sing the Sorrow at length. And it's great because it's always nice to hear people talk about albums that you like, isn't it? But yeah,
it is.
Yeah, Sing the Sorrow, AFI. Listen to it. What do you got, Troy?
I'm going to recommend the new album Dream Ride by G-Flip. G-Flip is an Australian pop artist who I discovered from a thread on Chorus where people were, I don't remember what thread it even was. Someone recommended this and said it was Springsteen inspired. G-Flip's Instagram bio, they describe themselves as Butch Springsteen, which I thought was funny. This album is like a real, just adventurous, spectacular, exciting pop album. Particularly the song I Don't Want to Regret, which is like just a burst of pure energy, and it's the exact energy that I got from Modern Girl by Bleachers, one of my favorite Bleachers songs, and kind of wanted for that entire Bleachers album, even though I love it for what it is. It's like a saxophone driven, like just fast, upbeat, fun pop song. And I have listened to it many, many times over the last week or so. So that is my recommendation.
I am looking at the album cover here and I am very intrigued. This sounds great. I am going to be listening to it tomorrow.
They're going to be at Talia Hall on October 17th. We'll see if I can get out to another show this month.
That sounds great. I will also look into that depending on how I feel about this record. But there's a song called Cut His Dick Off on this record, so I'm imagining I'm going to enjoy it.
Yes. Yeah, it's really good.
Hell yeah.
All right. We will be back next week talking about Fevers and Mirrors. And in the meantime, follow us on Instagram at noisefloorpod. Find us on the internet at noisefloorpodcast.com. Send us email at noisefloorpodcast@gmail.com. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.